welcome to Masters of Divinity, and Merry Christmas.
You filthy animal.
What if you did the what if we did the opening thing as like the normal, hello and welcome to Masters of Divinity, but we like sing it to the tune of Jingle Bells? Would that be corny? That would be corny.
That would be corny. I don't think that's no.
Welcome to MOD podcast.
Keep going. You can do it if you want.
Yeah, it's fine. Crowbar,
like Dan Harmon.
Crowbar your bad idea right into there. That's what we do.
I didn't catch that.
He said crowbar your bad idea right into there. That's what we do.
Just like the Wet Bandits.
Nice. We're here to talk about Home Alone.
Yeah. All we've yet to do is reference the movie we're not talking about today.
Which actually is a really good movie when you think about it.
Hot take: JP thinks Home Alone's a good movie.
Yeah. Am I contradicting myself? Was there a time where I said I didn't like Home Alone?
No, you're stating one of the most obvious statements you could possibly make.
Oh well, I think when I say
the movie that everybody loves.
When I say it's a good movie, I'm not talking about the sort of beloved nature of it. I mean, like I'm talking about it as like a work of art, as like a film. I think it actually is. Yeah.
Before we get on the movie we're actually talking about today, since we're on this topic, I just saw some random video of Macaulay Culkin on the show with Jimmy Fallon, The Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Grown Up.
Yeah.
That is one disturbing man. Kevin McAllister. He's an odd guy nowadays. Grown Up.
He runs a website now, right?
Yeah, that's what it was about. Some bunny ears.
Bunny ears. Yeah, I learned about this. So
yeah,
I'm on the up and up.
I still think it would be kind of a fun thing if they were to do sort of like a sequel to Home Alone with him as an adult.
That would be great. I mean, they should have followed him all throughout his life of just constant neglect, and him like actually just becoming more tough to the world,
right.
Yeah,
how great would it be if they did a movie like Home Alone, but instead of like the obvious thing, which would be to have the roles reversed where it's his kid, instead it's still him. Like his wife and kids are like in Paris, and there's this running joke that he's never actually made it to France because every time his family's ever tried to take a trip, they leave him.
Yeah, I think they should have gone international. Like they should have gone to Lost in Iraq or Russia.
And they
Home Alone in space.
Yeah. And
in the interview, they addressed like the conspiracy theories that like he became Jigsaw.
Oh yeah.
That's okay. Can I really hate that stuff.
Well, there's a shock.
It irritates me so much. Like it's not. That's not. No, your little fan mind headcanon is not real. Stop it.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
yeah. So angry.
So
you can sing your Jingle Bells song. We told you could do it already. I mean, quit.
Sorry, I did. I sounded a little irritated, didn't I? I apologize. This is a happy time of year.
Yeah. So today we're talking about a Christmas cult classic, or which I guess is sort of risen above cult status. What is going on?
What happened?
It's here to get mad.
This sounds like some mechanical stuff going on in the background.
Here you go. Wait for it. How about that one?
Okay, yeah.
Matt is setting traps for the Wet Bandits. JP, give us our setup. Why are we talking about A Christmas Story?
I grew up hating this movie.
Yes.
And for various reasons. One, it just made me feel very uncomfortable with its sincerity, if that makes any sense. I tried explaining it 2 years ago on our podcast and wasn't really articulating myself well, but it's just there's a lot of uncomfortable moments, and they worked a little too well on me, and so it sort of made it unwatchable. And those of you who are familiar with The Christmas Story, you know what I'm talking about. There's a scene in this movie where the little brother Ralphie doesn't want to eat his dinner, and his mother, played by the great. What in the world?
That's my house. That's not Matt's house. We've got a guy. They're installing a new dishwasher in our house as well. I'm in my bedroom with the door shut. Like, 'tis the season for home repair.
We are so professional here, guys. It's great.
So the mother, played by the brilliant.
Hold on, I can chime in too.
Okay. So the mother, played by the brilliant Melinda Dillon.
Great character in the movie. Great actress.
Who you might remember from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. She played the mom of the kid that was abducted by aliens.
Yes.
She's a great actress. She's so good. Anyway, so she tells Ralphie, how do the piggies eat their food? And, Ralphie, or Ralph, whatever you want to call him, whatever, he starts eating his food like a total freaking glutton. And that always made me uncomfortable. In fact, it actually always kind of reminded me of the scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre where Marilyn Burns is strapped down to a chair at the crazy weirdo dinner table, and they're all like taunting her and stuff. And those, I think it kind of ranks up there the most uncomfortable dinner scene in cinema. Second only to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just for the record,
Ralphie is not the little brother. Ralphie is the main character of the film.
I knew that. What's his little brother's name?
His little brother's name is Randy.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry, I'm a noob. And plus I realized while watching this movie, I haven't seen this movie in a really long time. Actually, probably more than a decade, I would say. Like, I probably was still a kid last time I saw this movie. But yet I knew everything that happened in it, which I think is
so. So the thing is this is listeners, this is a counterpoint. JP is a bit of a counterpoint for us because, gosh, man, because both Matt and I.
What did I do?
You're going through your junk drawer or whatever it is you're doing.
I didn't do anything.
Are you going through the condiments drawer in your kitchen or something?
It's not me.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you're going through that drawer that just has like a screwdriver and like some old Taco Bell condiments, like plasticware that's wrapped up from restaurants, and you're like, we'll use this again, but you won't.
Look, full disclosure. Thought I hit mute on the mic. I have a plastic bag that I'm filling up with like
double A batteries.
No, like my badge and name tag and pens and all this stuff that has to go with my uniform. So, full disclosure, thought I muted it, thought I was doing good.
Jeez.
So,
multitasking.
Dear audience, I apologize, but deal with it. Listen to my house chores. We're all big. We're one big happy family here.
I'm gonna love it if you hear the vacuum cleaner going.
I can arrange that. Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna wait till you're in the middle of a sentence.
Okay. So Matt and I are different than JP.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my God.
All right, for real.
We've lost Matt. Where did he go?
I'm gonna start muting my mic. So if you address me, give me like a half a second delay to get the mic turned back on before I answer. But I'm here, so I apologize. Go ahead, carry on.
So anyway, as I was going to say, Matt and I, something that we have in common on this podcast is that we both are fans of this movie and both are known to watch the 24-hour A Christmas Story marathon on TBS. This is a movie, I was just saying to JP before we started recording, that I think, if just in the sense of sheer numbers, I think it's a movie that I've seen more than any other movie. Just because my mom and I both enjoy it on Christmas, like the whole Christmas Eve to Christmas Day thing, we put it on and we leave it running. And it's just kind of in the background. And so we end up probably watching it in its entirety 2 or 3 times for sure, but it's just, always in the background. It's a movie that my mom deeply adores. I will say it's a movie where I find something kind of new in it every time. I really enjoy the nuanced character portrayals. I think the parents in the movie are very, like, there's clearly some there's clearly some subtext with their relationship that I think is brilliant, that the movie doesn't like just point to it. It just sort of lets it be in the background, and you can fill in the pieces. And from that perspective, I think it's well made in that the movie largely comes from the children's perspectives. And so you watch it through their eyes. When you watch it more and more times, you can, as an adult particularly, you can pick up on other things that are going on that they would not themselves pick up on. And so the movie doesn't need to call attention to it. For instance, like the obvious tension that's going on in the marriage, the issue with like bills and stuff. I mean, you can tell that they're having some tough times in their household. The
parents sleep in separate beds, by the way. Did you notice that?
That's right, they do.
I thought that was interesting. Never addressed, but you see it because Ralphie goes into the bedroom, and they're
That's
separate
right. He
beds.
lays the magazines on Susan. Yeah. I mean, not entirely uncommon in the 1930s when that's set, but yeah.
Is it the 1930s, or is it like I heard it's like somewhere between the 40s and 50s. I don't know.
It's set I believe it's set in 1939 because Wizard of Oz is a recently released movie. Because there's a lot of Wizard of Oz stuff in the movie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true.
The book was written in 1966.
Right.
Yeah. For some reason, I feel like I remember seeing a calendar and it was 1939. But anyway, it's a movie that I love. You JP, mentioned that you hadn't seen it since you were a kid. The first time that I ever tried watching it was when I was a kid. It was on the Disney Channel one night. And for some reason, around Christmas time, and I was trying to watch it, and I was surprised at how much profanity was in it coming from the little kids' mouths. And at that time, like, I was, not supposed to watch movies with cuss words, so I, did the good Christian thing and turned off the TV. Like at 9 years old when I was watching it, and I never watched it until TBS put it on the 24-hour thing. It was just, I wanted to check it out, so I put it on, and my mom and I were both just sort of blown away by it. And just, again, how funny it was and different things. So, and so that's become a custom in our household, to watch it. Yeah. But my wife is with you on this, JP. She is not a fan at all.
Well, it's interesting. I always greatly disliked this movie, and I'm not saying I've definitely seen probably bits and pieces of it more throughout my life than I have just sat down and watched the whole movie. Like I said, it's still very familiar. But when I actually sat down and watched this movie last week, I was actually really surprised by how I was not that uncomfortable this time around. I was a little fascinated by the fact that I did some research on the story, and I did some research on the author and what the book it was based off of and stuff. The name of the author is Gene Shepard, who was a very famous writer and radio personality back in the 1960s and 70s, and kind of all throughout the 20th century.
And he's the narrator.
Yeah, he's the narrator
of the movie. Yeah.
And so it's basically, and he wrote a collection of short stories called "In God We Trust," All Others Pay Cash, and it's actually there's actually a bunch of stories like this, just about growing up in the first half of the 20th century, or at least in the mid 20th century, I should say. So it's so what I was kind of struck by was how it's not necessarily a kids movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's very accessible, I think, for kids. But I think that this didn't feel like a kids movie, like it was made for kids. It felt like it was made as like just like a nostalgic look back of the golden age that was, that time period. And I think that's why it's so easy for kids to latch onto it, is because, it has such an endearing relationship with its period in time in our history in America, and it's very I'm trying to say it's a very boomer movie.
It is a super boomer movie.
It's so when you ask any boomer what was it like growing up, they'll tell you that it was a utopia, and this is how everybody was back then, and so and that's what I'm trying to say is that like that's what interests me the most. It's not like a negative critique or anything. It's that reason why I just thought it was interesting because it doesn't really come off as a kids movie. It's definitely marketed as a kids movie now, but it definitely feels like it was made by someone who was just very, very nostalgic for the time he was growing up in, and I think it was made that way too. And
see, I don't know. This is I think there's a dark edge to the movie.
Yeah. I think so too.
And I think that it's easy for people to say like you said, like a kids movie or whatever, but it's not. You're right. It's not a kids movie. It's an adult movie. It's a movie for grown-ups to watch and sort of remember their childhood, which makes it a perfect boomer movie. Came out in 1983, right at the beginning of the whole nostalgia wave.
Yeah.
For the baby boomers. But what I think is interesting because you're right. There's that sense of memory on how it's. My childhood, the childhood was perfect. It was this utopian thing, whatever, right? So the movie succeeds in showing that Ralphie is a super optimistic child who is determined to get the present that he wants.
Right.
But the whole world around him, when you pay attention to it, is pretty messed up.
Actively working against that desire.
Well, not only that, but it's also, the family is clearly on some kind, like they have economic issues.
Yeah,
because there's that whole thing about how like they've eaten boiled cabbage for 5 meals in a row.
I mean, and if it does take place in the time you're talking about, they would have, I guess, because it's sort of right out of the Depression.
Right. Yeah. So
Before
there's
World War II. So.
Yeah. So there's a frugality to the family. There's there's just a lot of little things in it that I think if you start seeing about the world in which they live, like for instance, when Ralphie changes the tire on the car, if you pay attention, the tire is bald. There is no tread on that tire.
Oh, I didn't know
so
that.
Clearly, like they can't afford like a good spare tire.
Right.
So the dad just found like some kind of retread or something, or like some kind of whatever tire he could just to have it. Like there's little things like that show that the world really wasn't all that rosy. As a child, you remember it as rosy.
Yeah.
But when you really pay attention, I mean, like look at the the yard where he gets in the fight. I mean, well, first of all, the kid's bullied, right? That's a big thing.
Yeah.
But you look at like the area where he gets in the fight with the kid, and it's like, what's this little rundown thing in the middle of this idyllic town where this is happening? And who are these children that live this kind of life that makes them, so clearly there's something happening in the margins of society that is not really addressed, but it's at least enough there for as somebody now looking back at it, which I almost wonder if there's a sly critique, considering that it is written in the 1960s as a memory of the 1930s, but then adapted into a movie in the 1980s. So sort of an 80s revisiting of a 60s point of view on 1930s. Like how many layers of critique is actually going on there?
Probably, yeah.
But anyway, that's I'm taking to a weird place. But
it's okay. No, it's fine. It's a good place to take it. We're not just like it's not just like a nostalgia fest. Which is fun. So I overall I think it's a pretty good movie. I wasn't as uncomfortable this time around, so I didn't hate it. But I actually the part where the mom makes the kid eat the mashed potatoes was actually, that part made me uncomfortable. Still, I think the reason why, because part of it makes me uncomfortable is if you look at her, there's complete desperation in her eyes. Yeah.
And there's a layer to that character, her character, that I did not fully understand until I had children and I watched my wife, because there frequently are these moments where, like, there's a little joke right before that part where the wife goes to sit down for a meal, and as soon, like before her butt even hits the chair, one of the kids is like, "Hey, can you get me this?" Or the husband's like, "Hey, honey, could you get this?" And so she never sits down. And he makes the comments like, "My mom hadn't eaten a hot meal in like 20 years or something." I think of that a lot with Kana, because that'll happen with the kids.
Yeah.
So that moment where she's hungry, she's desperate, the children are just being complete pain, and she just wants the kid to eat his food. And so she just snaps and is like, how's about I let you just go literally hog wild on this food? And you can just, if you look, I think it's a masterful performance on her part, because if you look at her eyes, you can tell she is holding back tears.
I do notice sort of an exhaustion in her role, especially that part.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Matt, how do you feel about A Christmas Story? If you're not like, I don't know, changing your oil or something, if that was you in the one.
It's good. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
All right.
No, I don't have the deep thoughts like you guys have on it. I just genuinely love this movie. I feel like the first time I saw it, I was like, that was so dumb. And then the second time I saw it, I'm like, this is so dumb, I'm laughing at it. And then the third time, I'm like, this is so good. Why did I think it was dumb?
Did you grow up watching this?
Or never quit watching it. Yeah, I definitely grew up watching it. The frequency in which I watched it drastically increased as I got older.
Yeah.
But this is definitely something I saw when I was like little enough to not get it the first time around, which was like yesterday. But I didn't like the first time around, didn't really understand what was happening, but still was like staring at the screen because, I mean, even as a little kid, you can relate to the kid who wants the present for Christmas and hoping to get it. And like it's all just like funny things happening to him trying to get this gift. But then as you get older, you get all the other things going on, like Chuck's talking about, the parents, the bullies, the little brother, the relationship in the family.
The casual child abuse played for laughs between Schwartz and that whole scene.
I love the phone call.
That's what I'm talking about.
That is one of my all-time favorite moments in that movie, and I cry laughing. I cry laughing every time it happens. When you hear the mom on the other end of the phone, and she like slips into this like satanic version of an adult in Charlie Brown, and all you hear is the kid like, "Why, Mom? Why?
What did I do? What did I do?"
So, I love that.
Well, the best part is, well, do you know where Ralphie heard that word? And I love the mother, because there's that refrain up until that moment, which was probably his father.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's definitely a story that is, Quentin Tarantino coined a term, the hangout movie, which is movies like American Graffiti, Rio Bravo.
You say like Dazed and Confused?
Dazed and Confused, yeah. Movies like that, and from Quentin Tarantino's perspective, Jackie Brown. And I kind of feel that about. I kind of see that in this movie. It feels like it's more remembered for its sort of the segmented moments that happen throughout. And we could talk all day about like the kid getting his tongue stuck on the pole, and the Santa Claus scene. We just talked about the mashed potato scene. The bunny suit, which is popular now. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying earlier. We can get into this a little bit more later if you want, but I'm a little irritated with the memification of the movie.
Yeah, what do you mean by that, though? Like, do you mean like how people have turned like parts of the movie into a meme that could be shared on social media, or do you just mean like the sort of corporate marketing in the movie using just like those bits?
No, what I mean is in the sense of like in the proper understanding of memetics, where like an idea develops and evolves. Not that I'm talking about image macros or that kind of or GIFs or that kind of thing. I'm talking about like a similar parallel is the way that people talk about James T. Kirk. That he's this womanizing, shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy. Well, so if you watch the original series, no, that's not James T. Kirk. Kirk is not that person.
Oh, okay, so it's like a play it again, Sam kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, it's become something. People have gravitated, or it's entered into a sort of popular like framework for it being something other than what it is. I think because I think I feel like it's a movie that people started watching ironically.
Okay.
Because it wasn't It's a Wonderful Life. It wasn't all of those things. And I think it was obscure enough of a holiday movie that it allowed a certain segment of the population to sort of feel like, this is my offbeat Christmas movie. And then it got marketed that way. And it was, now it's all, oh, I've got a leg, I have a leg lamp ornament, but like people like buying like leg lamps for their desk and, all that kind of like, and then it became like products associated with it. And like you can buy like Ralphie in a bunny suit action figures. And I think it's just that kind of where it's been sort of commodified and into a thing that, again, it's sort of the same thing of like, it's people don't, I don't think people, I mean, this is really probably judgy of me, but I feel like a lot of people, or the reason why it's in the pop culture zeitgeist is not for what it is, but for what it has been turned into.
Well, do you think it's because, like what you said, it got introduced into that 24-hour rotation on TBS fairly early in the 2000s, I think, right?
Yeah.
Or at least in the late 90s. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure when that started. I'm sure you can't be the only person who just kind of left it on for Christmas. I think that.
Oh, of course not.
I think it would have that sort of effect where it does kind of become. I mean, we see that with most of the things that we like growing up, that there are sort of like these ironic action figures and.
Yeah, I mean, and not that there's anything inherently wrong with that. It's just it's almost like when people talk about like my feeling on when I see Christmas Story posts and stuff on like social media or on Christmas time, and they've started to kind of die out. But it's this, I see them, and a lot of times I get the same feeling that I get when I hear people talk about Die Hard being their favorite Christmas movie.
Oh God, I hate that conversation so much. I hate it so much. Or it's not even me disagreeing whether or not it's a Christmas movie. I just hate the conversation. Nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares.
Right. It's that attempt. It's that attempt to like be cool.
Nobody cares because it's so obviously a Christmas movie. But carry on.
I'm shaking my head right now. Can't see it, but I'm shaking my head.
But yeah. Anyway, it's just it's that sense of. It's also the kind of the way I feel about like, what's his face, Cthulhu.
Oh, H.P. Lovecraft?
Yeah, like Lovecraft references that people make. I just feel like it's such low-hanging fruit at this point, and it's so cliche and overdone.
Well, it's actually, you're kind of right about that, because H.P. Lovecraft references people make as Cthulhu, which is like a sort of fundamental misunderstanding of Lovecraft, if that's all you know about him. But go ahead, yeah. You're right about that, yeah.
Yeah, I just sort of... Yeah. So that's what I'm getting at is like I think the work itself. There's more to it than leg lamps, bunny suits. You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Mm-hmm. I think there's more to it than just sort of the highlight reel. But I think that because TBS has run it for 24 hours for about a decade or more now, that it almost 20 years now, I guess. Is that as people have it just sort of down in the background, they just pick out those little highlights. And that's really what it becomes. Like, how many of us actually sit down and watch it from beginning to end and sort of take in the whole thing of the movie?
Right.
I mean, and, I know I sound kind of probably a little bit smug about it, and I don't intend to.
Well, I mean, I think
because I guess the thing for me is that I think it's a good Christmas movie, or a good holiday season movie, but it's. And I like
it's no Die Hard, got it.
But it's that like it. But the reasons why it's out there are not because of the movie. It's because of all this other crap that's around the movie, and so it sort of just becomes like a bumper sticker to stick on to your I'm quirky at Christmas time kind of persona for a lot of people.
Okay.
I don't know.
I guess that's kind of how I feel about Scrooged.
Yeah.
Even though I have a genuine love for Scrooge, I've loved it my whole life. because I'm such a big Bill Murray fan, and I have personal attachments to it because my dad and I used to watch it every Christmas.
I saw that movie in theaters and it scared the crap out of me.
I saw it in theaters too. It didn't scare me though. I loved it. Beetlejuice scared me though. I was screaming in the theater when my parents took me to see Beetlejuice. Anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. Anyway, so maybe will you be offended if I start asking you guys what are some of your favorite moments?
No, not at all. I mean, it's part of it. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with all that stuff.
Okay, no, I know what you're getting to because I get it. That it's sort of like, and it can come off as gatekeeping sometimes because then that's why sometimes I hold my tongue because I don't want to come off as like, oh, they don't know the real meaning of it. But there is something to it, and it is kind of a phenomenon that's existed in cinema for a long time. Like I mentioned earlier, "Play It Again, Sam,"
Right.
Which is like ask anybody to quote Casablanca, like, "Oh, play it again, Sam." Like, nope, nobody says that in that movie.
Right.
So it's something that's existed in cinema for a long time.
Luke, I am your father. Nope, not in movie. Beam me up, Scotty. Never once said.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's sort of like it's like that, but it's been drawn out more and it's a bit more, I guess, in depth because of our access to media now.
Well, and I just really quick, and I think Christmas Story has sort of that sort of pop culture memification thing of Christmas Story sort of played itself out, and now they're doing it to the movie Elf.
Oh yeah,
which is a great Christmas movie.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys, what are some of your favorite moments from the movie? Whoever wants to go first.
Matt should go first.
I mean, Matt should go first because Chuck already listed all of them. I mean, I agree with everything that has been said so far about the movie becoming popular and kind of forgetting what it's really about. But the moments that are remembered, there's a reason those are the moments that are remembered. And that's because they're awesome. But the phone call, I already said my all-time favorite is after he drops the F-bomb and his
Fudge?
Mom calls it and lies and says, exactly, yeah. He lies and says that he learned it from his friend, and his mom calls a friend, and the other mom on the phone freaks out, and you hear her just beating her child. That is one of the greatest moments ever. I love the fact that he legitimately shoots his eye out. I mean, not literally, but I mean, he shoots himself in the eye. Like,
It hits him in the cheek.
After an entire movie of it's going to happen. I love that it happens because that's so true to what happens when you're a kid. Everybody tells you this is a bad idea, don't do it. You're like, no, I'm smarter than you, and I'm a big kid. And then it always happened. We always wound up hurt. We always wound up wrong. I just loved it. I think it's hilarious. The tongue stuck to the pole. Come on.
That's the part. That's the one I remember the most.
It's classic.
Especially because the kid like screeches when it happens to him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of screeching in this movie, by the way.
And I love the escalation.
Yeah.
Now there's the fire department.
And because that is the moment that like every cartoon and TV show has, that's the moment they all took and redo and recreate. And I mean, I can't think of specifics, but I remember growing up watching cartoons. That happens all the time where they stick their tongue to something and get stuck and then try and pull it off. But like their tongue stretches really. It's everything played off. That was the moment that people loved before they even watched the movie.
Right.
So yeah, it's all good stuff. It's harder to find a moment in the movie I don't like now that I'm older and can see it from a different point of view, especially after having kids.
Yeah.
That kind of plays in, and not to be like, JP, you don't get it, you don't have kids, because I hate when people talk like that. But it plays in. It's just one more step into now the parents are totally different when you watch it.
Oh yeah.
It's great. Like Chuck said, all the underlying issues that the parents are obviously going through. When you watch it, you're kind of like missing it. When you're married and have kids, you're like, oh, I totally see what's going on there. Like they're at each other's throats, and the kids are like in the foreground, missing what's happening just behind them, but they're not really missing it is the other thing. The kids are so much more aware than the parents realize.
The dad is dealing with so much pent up anger, especially when he's fighting with the furnace. Like you could tell it's just like everything coming out. Like who gets that mad at the furnace? They had to be living in the Depression.
Well, but I love that when he's hitting the furnace, it sounds like Yosemite Sam. Like you can't actually make out what he's saying. He's just yeah. But it's just because it's clearly like these are words that a child wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But the tone and everything is clearly vulgar.
Well, and the movie makes it clear in the tire changing scene that the entire movie we are hearing it edited from the narrator.
Right.
So we're literally watching his memories, and he's editing his memories so that we don't hear the bad words, and that's said flat out for us when he's changing the tire, and the kid yells out "fudge" in slow motion. The narrator's like, "But I didn't say fudge."
Well, and what is great about that, I mean, imagine sitting in a movie theater in 1983 watching that movie, and the way that you see the kids shaping the words, and the whole time you're like, is he actually going to say this? Like, are they actually going to have this child say this? So it plays out with this false, and then it's fudge.
Yeah, and they play it out so painfully slow just to draw out that moment for the first time you see the movie. Like, I could see if I had never seen this before, and Bond and Bella are sitting next to me on the couch, it's that moment where you like grab their ears and are like, "Oh, this is so funny!" Like try and pretend they're not listening, and then you realize they don't even say it. So,
right, which then turns into, "Why did you cover our ears, Dad?"
Exactly, and it's like, "I was just playing, guys." Like,
why did you get in trouble for saying fudge? I love.
Yeah, while you're thinking of that, can I just interject? You just pointed out some great parental wisdom that we can pass on, Chuck. Attempting to shield your kids to the point where you're covering up what's happening makes things worse, guys.
Right.
Find a appropriate for children way to explain what's going on instead of trying to pretend it's not happening, because that'll just lead you down a rabbit hole you don't want to go down.
Or just watch it and be like, wasn't that funny?
Now my kids will never eat fudge because they're convinced that fudge is an evil thing, and even if you say the word, like demons will come into our house. Like I've ruined them for life because I just tried not to tell them that there's another word that exists out there. And
what do I do? The first movie I'm going to show my kids is Billy Madison.
Nice.
Your kid will become Billy Madison.
Probably.
That's okay.
The coolest kid in the world.
Okay. The movie has some great little small moments that I think that always kind of crack me up. I love the super creepy kid that's in line with him as he's going to reach Santa. Yeah. The kid has goggles on for some reason, and he just turns around and he's like, "I really like Santa."
That's something. One of those moments like, wow, that I remember being a kid and running into that kid a lot.
Right.
That's definitely one of those moments where I'm like, wow, yeah, I remember being that kid.
Nice.
Yeah, his name was Matt. He kept telling me he liked stuff.
I love the memory he has after he gets his mouth washed out with soap of him, him in the future being blind.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty funny, and I just love because the dad is like, "How did you come to this lowly estate?" Which I just it's just the drama and the way that it plays out of like 30s radio serials and stuff is great.
Yeah.
I love the dad. I think my favorite thing in the movie. I love the dad. He might be my favorite character in the movie.
He is great.
And I love how excited he is when he gets the telegram telling him that he's won something, and the way he escalates. Where he's like, maybe it's a bowling alley, like as though, and then the wife like snapped to reality. Do you think they're going to deliver a bowling alley? And then he's like, well, think it's in the deed. Like he's just so like, so there's that Ralphie hopefulness, right? And there's which now that I'm talking about, I realize there's a parallel between the dad and him, right? Because there's the prize, right. And he has this whole thing in his head that it's going to be this big thing, but it turns out to be this leg lamp.
That's right.
And then later Ralphie has a similar thing with the decoder ring.
Yeah.
Well, the dad is in my opinion, the dad's the child who never got the BB gun.
Exactly.
and his son is the one who gets it, only to be discovered that it's not all I thought it would be anyway.
Well, he did say he had a BB gun when he was a kid.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean literally.
He clearly buys it in defiance of the mother, which I think is also...
Yeah.
I don't literally mean the BB gun. I mean, he's the dad who feels like he never got the thing he wanted.
Right.
Like he's never gotten the success. He's never gotten the prize that he felt he deserved. Like he.
And a leg lamp. I love the leg lamp. And not the lamp itself.
The major award.
The major award. I just love how it brings out all the subtle marital problems that they've had, because clearly, and what I love about it is
the mom is very uncomfortable with it.
Well, he likes it because it's a prize.
Yeah,
that's really, I think it's a pure thing for him. It's a prize, but she's jealous.
Yeah,
and also it's ugly and way too sexual for their house.
I did think it was
I love when Ralphie like runs his hand up it.
Yeah, he keeps trying to touch it.
Grab the butt cheek that's on it.
Yeah, he keeps trying to touch it, and she's just always like slapping. Stop it.
And then they break it, and then that great line where he says, "I wasn't sure, but I'm pretty sure I heard someone playing taps quietly."
Yeah,
on a trash can lid or whatever. The dad buried in the backyard.
Well, and that's
big.
And that's what's so incredible about this movie, in my opinion, is that as you really watch the movie and understand what's going on, like I said, I didn't get it the first time I saw it. It took a few viewings for me. Part of it was age. Part of it's just you have to actually pay attention. Like the subtle fact that we're basically watching a fantasy. Like we're not watching a historical retelling of what happened in this kid's life. We're watching what a child feels is happening in the world around him.
Right.
So everything that's so exaggerated and over the top, it's because it's all through the viewpoint of a child who's around Christmas time, and the fact that families lose their mind around Christmas time. Like it's true. And when you get families together, it just gets worse. Like
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one thing I kind of noticed is, we were kind of reflecting through his eyes, and we've been talking about the financial troubles we're going through, the possible financial troubles we're sort of alluding to. On Christmas Day, they have a lot of presents.
Right.
And it kind of makes me wonder, like, maybe that's why they're having financial problems.
Exactly.
They're buying so many freaking presents.
It really is there's a subtle message to it, too. Like, the cliche message is definitely there that, like, material things don't bring happiness. It's your family. Like, I mean, on the surface level, that message is in the movie. Like, the movie is basically it's not
Christmas
about the
trope.
stuff we get. It's not
trope.
about the stuff we get. It's about enjoying the fact that we're together. And this movie, though, plays off as so much more than that. But on the surface, that's what this movie is. So, like, they're constantly getting this crap and giving each other presents and buying each other pink bunny suits and thinking that that's what it's all about. Oh, I know, but that's my point. Like, they think that they relate to each other through things, through gifts, through making each other what they want to be and giving them what they think will make them what they want them to be. Like, the dad wants him to be like him, so he goes against the mom and buys the BB gun. Like, you're going to get it.
Yeah, it's funny because Ralphie is basically just he's not really excited. Well, I mean, he probably is excited about Christmas, but the whole point of Christmas is just to get this gun. Like, if it wasn't Christmas, like, what would he be doing? Like, how would he be getting the gun? It's just sort of like his one chance to get the one thing he wants.
Right.
And it's kind of an interesting opportunity for him to kind of learn about the...
Well, and I like, too, that the dad gets him the gun. Because the dad is portrayed as emotionally distant throughout the movie. But the fact that the dad went and did it, it's this little thing where it shows the dad actually was very attentive to him. Mm-hmm. He knew what his kid really wanted. And he just went and did it. And of course, it is funny that he didn't consult the wife, and anyone in a marriage will relate. Like, something like that, you consult the wife.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Matt. You were going to say something.
On the surface, it's not any deeper on the surface than Jingle All the Way. I mean, I got to get the right present for my son. But what this movie does great is because it's through the point of view of a child, what you're seeing is everything he remembers is not getting the gun, that plays out as a very small part of the movie. Everything he remembers is all the stuff they did together as a family. He remembers changing the tire with his dad, which is the first time he cusses in front of his parents. He remembers when they burn the dinner and go get Chinese food for Christmas.
First time he stands up to a bully.
Yeah, for the first time. Like, the movie it's about all the moments that were together, but it's presented to you as, no, this is just about getting a BB gun. Like, by the time you're done with the movie, you're so tired of hearing about the make, model of the gun and how it works, and you think that, like, that's what this is all about. But what you really see is it's about the times together. It's that our memories as children are all the little moments, the slip-ups, the mistakes, the little details that we crack up and remember bigger than they were. Like, it's good. It's good. The way it does it is it's great, and a good reminder that it's like my wife and I always talk about with our kids. They're not going to remember the crazy work schedules and the weeks where we're concerned about money. Our kids won't remember any of that. They'll remember the nights that we decided, hey guys, tonight we're going to do movie night and have popcorn while we watch a movie.
Right.
Like, that's the stuff they talk about. And to them, if they were to write their Christmas story when they grow up, it would be like we built a theater in our house and had an usher lead us to the couch and deliver us. Like, to them, it's this big over the top thing when it's like all I did was take the time to sit down with them. Right. Like, yeah, it's good.
You mentioned the whole thing with the turkey. First, I love the neighbor dogs. I love that whole bit. I love how the one gets its ear stuck in the door. I think that is, I cry laughing at that every time. But I love that the dogs eat the turkey, and so then they go to the Chinese restaurant, which I love the Chinese restaurant scene. And what I love about it is, of course, like, it plays off of a somewhat of a outdated kind of joke, playing off of the fact that they say fa ra 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 instead of fa la 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 la.
Yeah.
But what I love is that the owner of the restaurant has clearly been in the United States longer than everybody else, and he's trying to teach them to use their L's properly. And so there's this little moment where he's like, no, it's fa la 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 la. And they keep messing it up. So it's clear, like, he's just brought in some, like, new immigrants that are working in his restaurant or whatever. And I just kind of like that little moment where the owner of the restaurant is, like, he's actually, like, helping his people. And it's not just a lazy, like, oh, the Chinese say things wrongly or whatever, like, outdated kind of joke. I think there's a little bit more to it in that moment, which is kind of ahead of its time maybe. But I love that they have to cut the head off the duck.
Yeah.
Because again, the way that scene is played out is so over the top.
Right.
That again, this might be giving the movie more credit than it is. It could have just been a cheap joke for the laugh. But the way it always comes across to me is it's not a view of the stereotype that's happening in front of you. It's the fact that you're viewing them as that stereotype. It's like it addresses this is how you see it kind of a thing.
Right.
When that's not really what it is. What it is a business owner who's, like you said, more educated than anybody in that room, but all they see is they can't even say fa la 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 la. Like, to me, it has an even deeper level there that, like I said, maybe I'm giving the movie more credit than it should get, but it feels like it plays out in a way that's actually addressing it if you're really watching the scene. Because, again, it's like you don't see them as negative in any way. You see the family sitting there judging them. You know what I mean? Like, you see them going, this is where we wound up. This is the best we get. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's a comment on the white family sitting there judging them, not a comment on them. But it plays out in a way that's still funny. And I think a great moment in the movie.
I really liked the outfit Randy had to wear out in the cold.
Oh my gosh, yes! The deep sea diving comment is great.
You just
put your arms down when you get to school.
You can't move. It's a classic joke that, like, a lot of people use, but I for some reason I think I've always thought it was really funny. And he's just, like, always, like, trying to catch up to his brothers, even while they're being chased by the bullies. Like, he's still trying to, like, catch up to them.
And I feel like it's a classic joke that people always use that I don't know if this movie was one of the first to do it, but I do know that this is the movie everybody references when they're making that classic joke.
Yeah.
Like I literally just heard it on a podcast this week that's not Christmas related in any way, but they're talking about some other movie. I can't think of what it is, and it's going to drive me nuts. But they're talking about some other movie and how this guy comes out like ridiculously dressed in all these different layers and stuff, and they reference the movie. They're like, it's almost like he's a little brother in A Christmas Carol and can't even bend his arm. Oh, it was they're talking about Rocky. It was Unspooled, and they're talking about Rocky on the AFI 100 list and how his trainer, or was it his trainer or Polly? One of the characters purposefully overlayered himself so that it was uncomfortable for him to move. So that in the movie it looked like he was having a hard time just walking into a room. And they're like, it's like the little brother in A Christmas Story. Like this is the movie everybody references when you picture the kid who can't move his arms and falls into the snow and can't get up. It's great. It's great. Love it.
So yeah, I thought that was really funny. I liked that. I think the highlight of the whole movie, and I think it's sort of like the big set piece, is when he visits Santa in the mall.
Yes.
And I think the reason why that's always stuck with me, even since I saw it when I was a little kid. I think it's the reason why it stuck with me is because it might have been the first time I've ever seen like a very irreverent Santa Claus.
Yes.
And very mean elves. And
yes.
the elves actually crack me up with their hats with the bells right in their faces. And it's like they're trying so hard to be mean, but they still kind of come off as adorable.
And every child comes away from Santa screaming and crying.
Yeah, and the way they get rid of them is just to like throw them down a slide. And I still laugh out loud whenever Santa like taps Ralphie in the head with his foot.
Yeah.
Like,
shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah, even Santa is just like, shoot your eye out. You know what? Everyone is such a jerk. Like if I were Ralphie and like the teacher said that to me in my journal, you'll shoot your eye out. Like, what did you want me to write? You told me to write whatever I wanted. You're gonna grade me? Like, what?
and again, that's what I love about this movie. That's all the fantasy movie side of this. Like to the little kid who wants something, literally the world is against you.
Yeah.
Like when you wanted that one toy growing up and you're like, this is all I want. I don't care if I get anything else. I just want this. It's like the whole world is against you about that one thing. Like your world is that toy.
Yeah.
You have to. Mall Santas were always creepy. So this movie is like, from his point of view, this guy is like a demon sitting up there ready to like torment children and kick them down the slide. Like it's great.
If you think about it, though, it shows this child's understanding of a political process and the politics of childhood, right? Like here I am going to lay these magazines out in front of my, open on my parents' beds so that they can see it, and then I'm going to try to make subtle references to it throughout meals, and then I'm going to get my teacher on board because I know that my teacher and my parents talk. If I get the teacher on board, then maybe she can help influence this and reinforce it. When that goes south, he's like, well, I got to go to the main man.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
And so he's, there's almost like a Mr. Smith goes to Washington. I don't know if that's really inaccurate, but you know what I mean? There's just like there's that sense of like, I'm going to go to the person of power. And that moment when Santa says no and he just feels crushed by it.
Yeah, that is funny because they go to pick, I still think the part where he goes down the slide, both he and Randy, when his parents are going to pick up, they're still like at the bottom of the slide. Like just sort of traumatized by what just happened, like just looking up the ceiling and like just totally depressed. Another thing that I think is kind of funny where you're talking about sort of the politics of like, oh, I got to go to Santa. One thing I noticed about Ralphie, and I don't know if it's sort of like intentional, maybe it was a decision on the director's part or the kid and his parents, I guess, I don't know, but like the way he treats it, like his whole posture while he's standing in line does look like he's about to ask for like a promotion at a job or something. He's very professional. He has his coat on. He has his arm over his coat, and he's just like like a dad waiting.
Yes. And he's not gonna let the weird kid distract him. He just kind of like looks over him.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty funny. An interesting thing to note about this movie, and I think it's probably why it made me feel so uncomfortable growing up, and even to where the last time we talked about this movie, I referred to it as a horror film, and I've even made some allusions to horror movies, is that the guy who directed it, his name is Bob Clark.
Yeah.
And he's famous for not only directing this movie, but 2 other films, one of which was a horror film, a very famous horror film, Black Christmas.
Right.
With Margot Kidder and... Was it Margot Kidder? Yeah, Margot Kidder.
Yep.
And
yeah,
go ahead.
Just watched it recently with my free trial of Shudder.
I thought you say you just watched it recently with your kids.
Shudder. Yeah. This guy has some serious issues with Christmas, but let's address that in a further episode. Yeah, I just watched it on my. I signed up for Shudder for the free trial because of a podcast JP told me about. But I'm not going to plug every other podcast on earth on our podcast. But another one that JP told me about, and I listened to a couple episodes and didn't feel like waiting for another 2 months for them to roll out every week. So I signed up for my free trial so I could listen to them all. But yeah, I just watched Black Christmas 2 weeks ago for the first time.
What did you think about it?
I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. It was very interesting. It's what's the Olivia Hussey?
Yes.
Is the main character, which is funny because all I know her from in my limited experience with the older movies is Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
So like, all I know her as is this very high like Shakespearean actor, and then I find out she's basically in the first slasher film.
Basically, yeah. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. How this movie has always made me uncomfortable as a child, and it was made by a horror movie director, who made one of the precursors to the slasher genre. All right, well, okay, so yeah, directed by a horror movie director. It probably explains why it made me so uncomfortable at the time. I think there's some elements that he ported over, like some elements of tension and whatnot. He's also known for directing.
Man, the Santa scene that you just talked about is filmed like a horror movie.
Yeah.
The extreme close-ups, the overly red cheeks on everybody where they look like eerie and unhuman. Like, it's very, very horror movie directed in that moment. So definitely.
Did you guys know that there's a sequel to this movie?
Yes, and it's awful. I've not seen it.
Well, there's a couple of sequels. There's a Christmas Story 2, and then there's another adaptation of a Gene Shepard short story called My Summer Vacation. Right? Is that what it's called? My Summer Vacation?
Something like that. Yeah.
Or My Summer Story.
Yeah, well, there's also sequels to The Sandlot, but we'll never talk about those either. So
and there's some other adaptations of his stories that are like made for TV movies and TV shows, which I'm sure are really bad. But funny story about My Summer Story is that Charles Grodin plays Ralphie's dad in that movie, and Kieran Culkin plays Ralphie. I don't know if you guys remember who Charles Grodin is.
Well,
I know that name.
No.
He was the dad in Beethoven.
Okay.
Oh, got it.
And he was in a lot of movies in the 80s and 90s. But when he made this movie, My Summer Story, it did so horribly and it was so bad that he quit acting. And that's why we haven't seen him in anything since then.
Amazing.
Also, just an unimportant side note to address that other Christmas movie that we're not talking about this time. Yeah. But guys, there's 5 Home Alones.
Yeah, I know.
There's 5. There's 5 of them. How pathetic is that?
All right. Well, I think we've talked about everything we can talk about our Christmas Story.
And Home Alone.
And Home Alone. And I didn't hate it, and I thought it was a fairly good movie. So.
Yay!
Yeah. Anyway, so that's all the time we have for this episode of Masters of Divinity. Father Chuck, Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Matt Wells, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, and join us next week for another Christmas classic, Die Hard. Go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Quit shaking your head. Move on.
Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful Christmas and good journey.
Good journey.
Good journey.